Thanks for joining in, everybody. This episode, we are taking a step in a little bit of a different direction that we haven't gone into for a little bit. We're going to be talking this episode about a movie that, I guess seeing as how it's our show, we can classify it as horror, but this really falls more into the comedy realm, and this goes back into, well, I guess this would have been kind of our heyday, even though we were talking a couple episodes ago about how we were kind of past our prime when we were younger for some reason. But we're taking a step to the late 80s in this episode, and we're talking about Joe Dante's The Burbs.
Yeah, it's one of those fun, I don't know, I guess you could say horror/comedy movies that, you know, it totally kind of brings me back to that time period of the late 80s, you know, riding around on my bike and in the neighborhood, but hanging out with everybody. And, you know, because I remember this movie was one of those, you know, always on cable films. And actually, that's how I saw it first, was probably on cable. And I know we recorded it, so I had it, like a copy of it on VHS. And this was one of those films back in Tom Hanks's heyday. I kind of miss those days, you know?
Yeah, I was trying to think, and I didn't really look into it too much. This had to have been like one of his last comedic roles before he went full-fledged into the whole dramatic scene. Well, I mean, not full-fledged, but he made a couple of things. But I think this was at 89, and did he do any dramatic stuff before the Philadelphia Project came out? I couldn't remember.
No, I don't think so. But I think like somewhere around this same time, 89, 90, he did Joe versus the Volcano. And I think that was maybe his, and I'm going completely off memory here, but like, I think that was the last, you know, Tom Hanks, comedic role type thing, you know, at least for that era. And I think that movie, I don't even remember seeing it, but I remember that movie was like a big deal. Everybody was talking about it. The trailers were always on TV. And then, yeah, he switched from that to the more serious roles, and then he went into that whole, you know, like the You've Got Mail and all that stuff that came later on. And
right.
And but yeah, I think to me, The Burbs is like the final film of the Tom Hanks comedy era. Like I'm thinking like Big, The Money Pit, Splash, you know, all those. What was he in what was his earlier one?
Bachelor Party.
Bachelor Party. And yeah, and I really miss, you know, it's kind of funny watching this film. It made me really miss that old Tom Hanks, because it was like, yeah, you watch a movie now, obviously he's a lot older, but he's taken on such serious roles that you don't really get those characters back.
Turner and Hooch, that was another one of those goofy Tom Hanks movies.
That's right. I actually saw that at the theater.
And yeah, even like you said, when you're watching like this movie and you watch anything recently that has him in it, and then you watch this and you're kind of like, is that the same guy? He's just like a goofball.
It's like totally different. Yeah, he played like just kind of the average guy, you know? And he did it so well back then. Like he was like the go-to actor for all those roles, you know? But yeah, I miss him playing these type of characters, you know? What do you think? What was the last time he did something like this? I mean, everything's been pretty serious, if I can.
He was in, what was the name of that? The Womanizers or whatever, I think, or whatever that movie was. It was like a Coen's Brothers movie where he wasn't like, I mean, it wasn't like a straight up, like, it was like one of those like dark comedies. I don't think I ever saw it, but it must have been like that he was in.
Interesting.
And that was a while ago. Other than that, I think the thing I kept thinking about was You've Got Mail, which came out like in 1999 or 2000 or whatever.
Yeah, and I mean that was a little bit more in that area.
And I do have a confession to make about You've Got Mail. So that movie came out. It must have been like 2000 or 2000. Yeah, it must have been like 99 or 2000, because when my wife was pregnant with our oldest daughter, who was born towards the end of 2000, for the majority of her pregnancy, we actually lived in my parents' house, and it's kind of I'll try to keep this not too long-winded. My dad works in a job that he used to be away from home a lot, and shortly before my wife got pregnant, my mom had decided that she had had enough of my dad being gone all the time, so she was like, you know what, I'm coming with you. So anyway, my mom and dad were gone for my dad's job all the time, and then my mom ended up working with my dad. So when my wife got pregnant, my mom and dad had said, hey, because my younger brother was still in high school at the time, and my mom and dad were like, hey, do you guys want to come and watch the house and keep an eye on your younger brother? And that'll help you stash away some money for the kid and, you know, build a little bit of a base. And so anyway, so when my wife was pregnant with my oldest daughter, we'd moved into my mom and dad's house. So it was me, my wife, and my younger brother, who was like never there because he was always partying and whatever. But anyway, my mom and dad had satellite back in those days, and it was like the old school, you know, giant 17-foot dish out in the yard kind of satellite. This movie was on like HBO or Cinemax or something, and this movie ended up being for like almost a year. Every time it was on, we just ended up watching it. And so I have seen You've Got Mail probably 200 times. And it's still one of those movies that I love, which is so weird.
That is weird. Now, is it like the uncredited sequel of Sleepless in Seattle, or is it completely different?
No, it's not. It's not. Yeah, it's completely different, but it's like it was like the trilogy, the Meg Ryan, Tom Hanks trilogy, because they did Sleepless in Seattle and they did Joe versus the Volcano.
Oh, she was in that. I didn't realize that.
Yep, and then they did You've Got Mail.
Okay, interesting.
See, now what would be funny is now that they're both older, is if they did a new movie to where like they were like the grandparents.
Be a good idea.
You know, or it would even, yeah, well, I mean, we won't get too far off topic here. This is Horror Heads, and we're going into some like weird, like romantic comedy.
We're hitting the romantic comedy section of the classic, the mom and pop video store now.
You know how many listeners we just lost in the last 5 minutes? People are like, what the fuck are these guys?
Yeah,
what's
going on here?
Turn this shit off.
The Burbs. It's got kind of like the feel of, here's how I would say it. If I was like at the drive-in and they were doing like a comedy horror night, I could picture like a double feature of The Burbs and Monster Squad. And I think that would be a great, just a great kind of crack open a few beers, sit back and watch some movies. And just kind of for that sort of like, low-key, PG type horror.
I could see that. Or even almost even just to keep it in theme with the Burbs itself, you could do like the Goonies and then the Burbs.
Yeah, there you go. That would work.
I think the Goonies actually falls kind of into more of the realm of horror, as much as the Burbs is. Because the Burbs is really, when it comes to like the horror elements of the Burbs, it almost is exactly the same as the Goonies. So there is this underlying story that is being kind of narrated through the movie, and then you're like, oh, that's not real, that's not real, that's not real. And then it gets to the end of the movie, and then you're like, holy shit, they were telling the truth the whole movie. It is real.
Yeah, this is your... another movie that this is similar to and goes back to the horror is kind of has a Fright Night feel to it as well, where it's about, something's up with the neighbors, and, the main character's suspicious, and he gets his friend, and they go kind of investigate, and they go over there and kind of meet everybody, and it turns out, that there's something kind of weird about these people. And actually, one of the guys actually kind of reminded me of Peter Vincent from just in his appearance, like the older guy, like
Bruce Dern,
the doctor character.
Oh, that guy, sure.
Just in looks, he didn't. I mean, his character was nothing like him, but just sort of that kind of ancient old man look, where he looks kind of like.
Who's the miniature version of Peter Vincent?
Right. Yeah, he could have been like, in a coffin somewhere, and they dusted him off for this movie.
So if you're not familiar with the Burbs, the storyline is pretty simplistic. So basically what it is, and this is one of the things that, happens a lot in movies and television shows, is that everything just seems to be just falls in line perfectly. Because just by coincidence, the main character in this movie, played by Tom Hanks, he's on vacation for a week. And evidently, either everybody else is on vacation at the same time, or nobody else works in the cul-de-sac that he lives on. But he lives in the Burbs, and essentially what it is one of his neighbors is hanging out with them, and there's some curiosity about these new neighbors that they have. Basically, what ends up happening is they just assume that these new neighbors are... Well, what were they calling them? Were they
cannibals? Was it cannibals? Was it?
I can't remember. Were they trying to call them like grave robbers or something? Man, I just watched it yesterday again too. But
well, because they watched the guy take the body out to the garbage.
Yeah. And so basically, what happened is one of their other neighbors had kind of went missing, and so these other neighbors were mysterious, and then they were like, "Oh, they must have killed him." And so then anyway, they start doing this almost like, I don't even know how to describe it. It's, it's really, like you said, it's kind of like a cross between like Fright Night and the Goonies and maybe like the Munsters and, just all this other, just quirky stuff, to where basically what it is it's an over-exaggeration of anybody who lives in a suburban type of area, or even in a residential type area. Everybody has those neighbors that are always nosy and like, whoa, what's going on over there? What's going on over there? And so it's just kind of a take on that, but with a little twist to it, I guess. Because, I think that's kind of the moral of the story, really is, oh, we're the ones who are, trying to say that we're so much better than those guys are, but actually we're being creeps by spying on them and digging through their trash and peeking over the fence at them and all this other stuff.
Yeah, it's a take on the whole concept of, middle America, where you've got, these suburban neighborhoods, and then there's always this one house that, there's something off with the people there. Either you don't see them very often, or, there's, rumors about what they do or who they are. I don't know about you, but do you remember like having a house like that on your block or nearby you? I remember we had like one not too far where we thought that, well, we would always think that the woman there, like the old lady there, was a witch. And so we had like this witch in the neighborhood. But
well, do you remember when me and you lived in the same town?
Yeah.
The one house on the corner closest to your house, from my house, actually, was like abandoned for a long time. It was like
on your block.
Yeah, it was like foreclosed, or not foreclosed, but what do they call that when the city comes in and condemned?
Oh yeah, okay.
It was like condemned, and we never like did anything to the house, but then we always used to think like, oh, what's going on over there? But yeah, not until now, where I live at now, now that I'm older. Probably that way a little bit, because there's a couple of like sketchy, neighbors.
Yeah, there's always that one house. Yeah. Oh, you know what? There was another house on my block. Looking back, that was it's kind of funny. It's almost like the Burbs. You probably won't even remember this, but it was on in the old neighborhood. Back when we were kids, and like there was one house that was like completely covered up in like the trees, and it wasn't, I don't think it was abandoned, but like it was like your classic like haunted house type look, sort of older house, and looked abandoned all the time. And I guess that one wasn't really one that we focused on so much, but thinking back, on the old block, it's like, yeah, there was that one house that seemed like there was nobody that ever was living there, and it was always kind of creepy. And I think actually, last time I looked at that house, they've redone it and it looks more new and all that. But I remember back way back when it was kind of like that house that like you,
Oh yeah,
when you're walking to school or whatever, you're like, oh, like I can't. I wonder if anybody lives there. That's creepy.
There was a house, actually, not to say that story. There was a house. It's like a block away from me. That when we first moved in here, it was like a shack. I mean, it really was like a shack. And if you've ever heard the song "Crazy Mary," there was this old like Victoria Williams song, and then Pearl Jam did a cover of it. But anyway, that house always reminded me of that song because it kind of sounds like the house that's described in that song. But anyway, about 5 years ago, I don't know what happened, if the person that was living there died, or if they sold it. I mean, there was never a for sale sign or whatever. But anyway, all of a sudden, there was a couple of new vehicles over there all the time, and they were working on the house. And after a couple of months, they completely redid the entire house, and it looks completely different. And it's real small, but it's like, oh, you know what? If I was like single, that's like a cool little house. I would live there for sure. And it's nice on the inside too, because actually when our girls were in Girl Scouts, the people that live there now used to buy Girl Scout cookies every year. So you know, they would always invite you in and say, hey, come on in and see what's going on. You know, they would say that, but, you know, come on in and, you know, we'll look over what you got, or, you know, let me get my wallet out and stuff and give you your money. Man, that was a weird sidebar. So if the folks didn't turn off before when they're like, ugh, you got mail, screw that. What the hell? You get Girl Scout cookies and what? What's going on?
So that's our new category now. It's the Kool-Aid and Girl Scout cookie movie. And so I guess we'll put You Got Mail and Sleepless in Seattle as the top ones for that. And so, so we'll have to do that category as well. But also too, we can't forget, like in this movie, this is also a Corey Feldman film. So if that'll give you a total 80s vibe, I'm sure, just hearing that. So this is one of his.
Oh yeah, I guess I should have explained that earlier when I was talking about the Goonies and into the Burbs. That was the connection there.
Now you totally, there's a big connection there with Corey Feldman. Yeah, this is one of his later teenage movies as he was getting older. And also Princess Leia is in this film, strangely enough.
Before we go into Carrie Fisher, let's talk about Corey Feldman for just a second here. It's weird that I know some of this. Well, I mean, it's kind of, for the time, I guess it's okay, and maybe a little bit relevant, because I finished watching that documentary that was on HBO, Leaving Neverland.
Oh, yeah.
The Michael Jackson stuff, and we won't get into that. But at the time that The Burbs was made, Corey Feldman was a very close friend of Michael Jackson's. And here's a little tidbit of The Burbs trivia for you folks out there that you may not know. Michael Jackson never visited the set for The Burbs, but supposedly his famous monkey or famous chimpanzee did. Corey Feldman would bring Bubbles to the set with him every once in a while. And
interesting.
Due to like safety concerns, like the people on set would be like, you got to put him in your trailer while we're filming. So I guess like Bubbles would just hang out in Corey Feldman's trailer when they were making The Burbs.
That is weird.
Oh
my gosh. That is really weird. I had no idea about that.
But I was trying to think of, so when this came out, this was in 89. I think this was like the very end of like the Corey runs, wasn't it? As far as, I mean,
the end, it was close to the end, because he had a few like Dream a Little Dream, a few things right around that era, and that was boom, that was it. He was gone. Like, because in the 90s hit, and Corey Feldman was, pretty much, like License to Drive, when that might have been his last big one.
Yeah, that was before. That was before this one, though.
That was before this. Okay.
Yeah, because I remember seeing that one at that one mall thing theater, not in
The little mall or the bigger mall?
I don't remember. I just remember
Lakehurst.
Lakehurst. Yeah, that's the one.
Oh, okay, Lakers. That was a decent mall. There was another mall called the Belvedere Mall, which was like a one floor, one little strip area, and it had a tiny little movie theater. That was where I saw Ghostbusters as a kid. But okay, yeah, Lakers then.
But either one, I mean, because this came out right around the time that I had left, and I remember seeing License Drive before that, like the year before that.
Okay, gotcha. Yeah, because strangely enough, the memory I have of this film, like the thing that always pops in my head, I picture myself riding on my bike after hanging out with one of our friends over by the junior high school, and it was getting like towards, it was getting dark. It was probably a weekend or something, and riding home, and then going home and watching this. It was on TV or something, and I think it might have been summer. But yeah, so that's kind of my memory of this film. So yeah, this is one of those late '80s. So we were like in our 7th grade era, right around there.
Yep.
Crazy, yeah. But yeah, it's like we said, it's like one of the films about you got the creepy neighbors, and you go to check it out, see what they're all about, and then in this film, well, I guess we can't give away the ending, but it's got that sort of, like you said, it sort of talks about how the way the main characters are acting and sort of stalking and being creepy in their way sort of almost trumps the neighbors they're trying to figure out if there's something that they're doing.
One of the things I did want to talk about, and you already mentioned her, our Princess Leia, is in this movie.
Yeah, she is.
The lovely Carrie Fisher. And one of the things that we always talk about when we talk about certain females and certain roles in movies is we always kind of, we kind of always jokingly talk about like, oh, that girl was hot, or one of the other things that we have talked about in the past is certain movies when you watch when you were, 13 years old compared to when you were 40 years old, and you're like, 13, you're like, damn, that girl's hot. Speaking of the daughter. And then when you're 40, you're like, damn, that girl's hot. And you're looking at the mom or the grandma. But the one thing I noticed in this movie, and this isn't like a relatively new thing that I've noticed, but I think we talked about before, another movie that Carrie Fisher and Tom Hanks was in is The Man with One Red Shoe.
Okay.
When we did, I think actually we talked about during the Carrie Fisher episode. And one of the things that we had talked about in that episode is like, there's a certain scene in The Man with One Red Shoe where Carrie Fisher is in this like leopard print, like panties and bras, or panty and bra outfit. And you compare that to the slave girl outfit in Return of the Jedi. And I had actually said that, she is actually sexier in The Man with One Red Shoe compared to Return of the Jedi. And
oh, man.
I probably got some flack for that. But anyway, I'm wondering, and I want to see if you have the same feeling as I do. So, Carrie Fisher had kind of was this sex symbol in the like early mid 80s. And then The Burbs came out in 1989. And then somewhere around that time frame, Carrie Fisher went from sex symbol to a motherly type figure. Because not only in The Burbs, but the other movie that is right around that same time too is When Harry Met Sally, and she was kind of had that kind of like,
oh yeah, I would agree with you. Yeah, because she like, to me, like, I don't remember much of anything she did. It seemed like she would pop in and out of things in like the late 80s or whatever, maybe the 90s too. There's Princess Leia, and like, obviously you got Return of the Jedi 1983 with the slave Leia and all that stuff. And yeah, and that's one way of seeing her. But then, yeah, you're right. And then she popped up, and all of a sudden she's like kind of this like more motherly character. it's strange. Like I just saw, well, a few months ago, I was watching with my daughter Drop Dead Fred, which is like a really terrible '90s comedy, and she's in that too. And she kind of has that same plays that same character that she plays in the Burbs, kind of like more like of that more serious motherly type character, I guess you would say. I guess, I would kind of compare her to, I think I could. This is so crazy. Oh my gosh. I was wondering how this was going to work. Are you ready for this?
Jamie Lee Curtis,
God.
let's do it.
You're right. I was going to say, she reminds me of like a Jamie Lee Curtis, which obviously connects everything back to John Carpenter, which is what this show is all about. So yeah, she reminds me because you think of Jamie Lee Curtis in those early years and you compare it to how she was more in the later 80s, early 90s and that kind of thing. And it was like very night and day. And I would say the same thing with Carrie Fisher. It's like her character just flipped.
The last thing I wanted to point out in this episode is I know that Joe Dante kind of paid homage to several different movies and stuff in this movie. Being a Universal movie and being filmed on a Universal lot, you can pick up on some stuff. Like, for example, like the Munsters house is in this movie.
Oh, really?
And then, but the one thing I wanted to ask you about was, if you picked up on this or maybe you didn't, is when they're going through stuff and they find like the bone and they're like, oh, this bone, it's Walter. And they're like, oh, like kind of doing that weird comedic scream. But
right.
The camera is going in and out, in and out, in and out. Yep. Do you think that was done on purpose as an homage to Blood Island?
That's funny. That could be. Yeah, I wonder if Joe Dante is a fan of that crazy movie.
Yeah, I don't know. That's what I was thinking of when I was watching. I'm like, oh, maybe he did that on purpose.
Because he was like connected to what's his name, Roger Corman, like in doing all those low budget, movies. That's kind of how he got his feet wet. So I'm wondering if maybe he did have some weird connection to liking that movie and oh, that's funny. That's too funny. Yeah.
Oh, man.
I forgot about it.
Well, I think we stumbled through another episode without really talking about the movie at all.
Yeah, well,
I mean, that's
our way of avoiding spoilers, right?
It's really becoming our MO on this show which I guess it's kind of how we kind of pitch the show. It's just two buddies just hanging out talking and whatever comes out, comes out.
That's how it works.
But I give the Burbs, I definitely give this one a thumbs up.
Yeah, me too. This is definitely a thumbs up film. This is one of those films that back in the day was the one that you could always kind of, if you were bored, it was a rainy day, oh, I'll watch the Burbs. It was, back then before there were cell phones and the internet and all that, and you had to try to find things to do with your time. This was one of those films that easily would be like either you're watching it on a cable or you go to the video store and you can't find anything, and this is the one you'd grab just because you've seen it before. But yeah, I can watch this one again. So yeah, definitely thumbs up. Got to go check this one out if you haven't seen it.